All right, so the first thing we're going to do is open a new document, and we're going to title it. So Ghost and your initials. And I'm going to change my document size to 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels, resolution 150 pixels because it's on a screen, and then I'm going to create my document. All right, so I have my original document. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my image. So I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to go to the image that I took, my photograph. So I'm going to click Place. For me, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, so I'm going to hold down Alt while I drag, Alt and Shift while I drag, so it centers it within the page, and I'm going to click check mark. Mine's a little offset, so I'm going to go over like this to making sure it looks centered in the page. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pen tool. You don't have to use the pen tool. You could use your polygon lasso if you find this easier. And the way that you do this is just click point by point. And I'm just clicking, and it creates like a rubber band. And I'm just going around my head. All right, so that's one way to do it. The other way would be with the pen tool, which I feel is a little bit better for doing things with curves. So you click, and then before you click the second point, you click and drag, and then you click your third point, click and drag, and you click and drag. All right, and when you get to a point where you have to change direction, so I don't want it to go up anymore, I want it to go out. I hold down my my command key, and I click on the last point, and I can start a new direction. So click and drag, and I hold down my point again, click and drag, click on it, click and drag, and then I made it all the way around. So again, I hold down my control button, and I can hit that point so that I don't have to worry about it, and I just keep going around my head. I like using the pen tool because it's a little bit smoother, gives you a nicer selection than if you were doing the other tools, but any of them will work. Whatever you feel comfortable with, I would continue with. All right, so once you get your head all selected, and then when you get to the end, you see a little circle, that means you're closing it out. So once you get your head all selected, you can either right click and say make selection, or if you use the lasso, it should already be selected. And what I want you to do is I want you to click your M key, make sure you have a marquee, and then right click and say layer via copy. All right, so I'm just gonna turn off my background layer, save it for later. So I have my floating head. All right, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to hit our Command U, so Control U, all right, and that gives us our desaturate. So that's the same as going up to our image menu, adjustments, and going to saturation. All right. So what I want to do is I want to take my saturation of my image all the way down. So we're just removing all the color on it, and this is just to do the ghost face. If you're going to do some kind of ghoul or something else, you don't have to do it like this. But if you want to do the ghost face, this is an easy way to do it. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my layer 1 2 times. So I'm going to hit Control J 2 times, and I'm going to title my layers. So I'm going to title this one Bottom Glow. I'm going to title this one Painted Face, and I'm going to title this top one Top Glow. All right, so I have 3 layers. Next thing I'm going to do is select my top glow, and I'm going to control click my thumbnail. So click right here, and that selects my thumbnail. Then I'm going to right click on my screen, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I actually don't want to select the face. I want to select the space around the face. So I'm going to right click and say select inverse. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to filter, I'm going to go down to blur, and I'm going to go down to my radial blur. All right. The radial blur allows me to do like a burst of light coming from behind my head, which will give it a kind of ghostly look to it. So I'm going to change my size to 100. I'm going to make sure it says zoom and best. You can also do spin. Spin does some really cool effects too, so try them both. But I'm going to go with the zoom. And you can see it's zooming out a little bit around the ears and stuff. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the inverse again. Select inverse. And I'm going to feather this. So right click and feather. And 6 to 8 pixels is fine. Click OK. All right. And I'm going to just delete my face from this image, from this picture. So I'm turning off the other layers so you can see, but I'm just going to hit delete. All right. And that gets rid of the face. Actually, I'm gonna go back a little bit before I get rid of it. So I'm gonna go back to select inverse. I'm gonna expand my selection by 6 pixels. Oops. I'm gonna contract my selection by 6 pixels. So modify, contract by 6 pixels, and then I'm gonna feather it. So and then modify, feather, and I'm going to do 8 pixels. Right, this way I'm going to get a little bit of an edge around my face as I delete it. So I'm turning off my other layer so you can see that I'm deleting it, and just deleted it. Alright, so we'll see how that looks. Next thing we're going to do is so locate my layer opacity, and I'm going to reduce my opacity of this layer to 50%. Right, so I'm lining it up. Select the bottom glow now. So I'm going to go to bottom glow, turn that layer on, and I'm going to go to filter again. I'm going to go to blur, radial blur one more time, and this time I'm going to change my zoom, my amount to 50. Right, so it's less apparent, but it still has a zoom in there. So I did my zoom at 50, and I'm going to select my top layer, my top glow layer, and then I'm going to click on my adjustment layer at the bottom, so my adjustment cookie, and I'm going to select color lookup. Right, so the reason why I selected the top layer is just because I want to make sure color lookup's at the very top, and then I'm going to go up here to 3D LUT, and I'm going to find horror blue. Right, that gives me that ghostly look that I want. Right, so I'm going to select my burn tool now. Turn back on the face. I'm going to select my burn tool. I'm going to click on the painted face layer. And I'm going to begin increasing the shadows in the face. So I'm going to click O for my burn tool. And I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to shadows. And I'm just going to start darkening up some of the areas that I want it to look a little bit more scary. All right. Lower your exposure if you don't want it to be too dark. So I'm coming into the eyes areas because I definitely want those to be dark areas. All right, so make it very ominous around my nose, eyes. All right, so now I look a lot more ghostly and ghoulish. All right, next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna select my background layer, and I'm gonna hit my D key on my keyboard. And if you look down here, I have these red colors, and when I hit D, it defaults to black and white. And what I want to do is I want to fill this background layer with black. So I'm gonna hit Alt Delete or Option Delete if you're on a Mac. So Option Delete, and that gets me a black in the background. So now I'm just gonna style this face as I like it. You don't have to, you can do whatever you want to it. There's some edges that I see that I don't really like. So these little edges that are white, I'm gonna get rid of those. It's just where I didn't select the head that well. So I'm just gonna go to my painted face layer and cut those out. I'm just using my polygon lasso to do it too. You can use whatever you like. But taking the time to really clean up those little edges and stuff will make your work look a lot more professional in the end, a little bit more clean, and it'll help with the overall like ghostly look. So, and you can play with your glows and whatnot, but that's pretty much the tutorial. Now what I would do is I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to add in some other features. I've already done this design, so I'm going to I've already done the eyes and the stuff. I want the eyes dripping, I want the smoke glowing. So I'm going to click save on this, save as, Ghost NT is fine. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open my flames. So